Front door, front door.
Tonight in Crimewatch on the streets, we're on the trail of the criminal networks using slave labour to make millions.
People trafficking, drugs importation, drugs trafficking, prostitution, extortion. This is a highly organised process with violent criminals behind it.
We follow the specialist team set up to counter the vast trade in stolen metal.
I'm arresting you on suspicion of the theft of 42 tonne of steel.
And we dive underwater with the police search unit on the hunt for stolen cars and missing people. It's dawn in March 2009, and we're with the Metropolitan Police on the way to raid a factory in South London. The target isn't a warehouse or industrial unit. It's a house on a quiet residential street. If the police intelligence is correct, not only is the material being manufactured here highly illegal, but its sale is generating millions for organised crime gangs. But the officers aren't searching for drugs or stolen goods. What they're after is something far more commonplace.
Governor.
Yes.
Dress is secured, no personnel on site. There are DVD burners upstairs.
This house has been converted into a counterfeit DVD factory, churning out hundreds of thousands of illegal copies of films.
Yeah.
Be so clear, and we'll leave these 2 rooms for last.
Okay.
This is illegal film piracy on an industrial scale. There are around 40 DVD burners on the premises, each capable of copying thousands of discs in a single day at next to no cost. The money from their sale would go straight into the pockets of organised criminals.
It's a ledger with
It's got, yeah, just open it up. Obviously, them machines, I believe machines and how many they're doing. And then it's got figures on the other pages. And amounts of money.
This is going to hit them so hard.
You can see it just, I presume
It's a business end, isn't
either
it?
how many they've done or how much money
Yeah.
they're making on each one.
It is slightly bigger than we thought. Obviously fairly disappointed that there aren't people here to answer for it. However, just doing a quick tot-up, we think there could be £100,000 worth of counterfeiting at this one address.
This type of scene is increasingly common. Pirate movies for sale in pubs, streets and markets. Yep, they're cheap, but if you've ever been tempted, you might think again if you knew where your money was going.
This isn't about ordinary people like you and I know just perhaps making a few quid here and there by burning a few DVDs. This is a highly organised process with violent criminals behind it. DVD piracy is a low-risk, high-profit crime, and the money from that is what funds those other forms of criminality. People trafficking, drugs importation, drugs trafficking, prostitution, extortion, all crimes that cause human misery on a large scale, and it's all being funded from DVD.
The problem is so big that a specialist organisation called FACT, or the Federation Against Copyright Theft, exists to combat it. Largely comprised of ex-police officers, FACT is headed up by former Detective Chief Superintendent Kieran Sharp. Vastly experienced in these type of investigations, for 4 years he ran Interpol's Economic Crime Unit.
We operate like a mini police force. We do our own investigations, observations, surveillance, and we do that in a professional, experienced, knowledgeable manner. We provide an evidential product to our law enforcement partners that they can take forward on our behalf.
It's 10 a.m. and officers from FACT and the Met are preparing to raid a suspicious address in Lewisham in London.
Intelligence suggests that the address is being used by organised crime groups to manufacture, store and distribute counterfeit infringing film media throughout London. We'll enter the address and secure the exit routes and secure suspects present.
FACT have had this property under surveillance for weeks and are sure it's being used as a DVD factory. Eddie Leviton from FACT explains the role they play on raids such as these.
We can provide a lot of the intelligence on the premises and sometimes on the individuals involved as well. But obviously we always need the police to be able to effect the entry into the premises to execute the warrant. That's the bit that FACT can't do.
Their main hope is that if it is indeed a factory, the people running it will still be there.
Down, fellas. Go, go, go. No, down, down! Front door, front door. Police! Clear! Room clear! Police! Upstairs! Turn the front room. Move upstairs, sir. On the floor!
There are 7 people inside the property. None of them speak English. They're secured and handcuffed whilst police begin a search of the premises.
They're all secured. They're all handcuffed. Excellent. House is clear. Right, down the loft.
Placed you under arrest on suspicion of the production of counterfeit goods.
Inside the premises, there's about 10 DVD towers found so far on the ground floor. There's a garage here and also an outhouse which they're going to take, a side door to the garage which they're going to go into in a second.
And again.
Police!
What it looks like, they've taken the furniture out of the house to create more space, either to live or to be able to produce the DVDs or to store them.
So at least 14 towers.
We've got 14 towers in the premises.
OK, fine.
We're going to go into the back garden of the house. There's actually the gate here, which the police had to just use a bit of force on to get into. But this door was left unlocked. And inside here are the burners all packed up. And inside this bag, there's all the cables all ready to go. So we're very, very certain that these was a factory that had been operating. They were ready to move out for whatever reason, and they were moving the stuff out through the back garden.
Yeah, that's what it is. Just confirm that's the information.
You're looking at about 6,000 DVDs a day being produced from these burners alone. If you're going on a sort of 12-hour day, average street price at the moment is about £3 per DVD. So, you know, £15,000 to £20,000 criminal profit being produced just from these burners alone. Chances are if we'd have come tomorrow or the day after, there would have been nothing in the house, so it's really good timing.
But experience tells them the people arrested here are not the ringleaders. They're just foot soldiers running the factory on behalf of their criminal bosses. And, as is almost always the case, when operations like these are uncovered, the workers all appear to be Chinese.
I will reckon 5 of them from Fujianese background. And the rest, the lady and also her partner, possibly is from the northern part of China because of the accent.
The vast majority of people arrested for running DVD factories in this country come from the same part of China, Fujian province in the southeast. Many Fujianese are very poor and so want to make a new life in the West. But getting legal entry is almost impossible. So for most, the only option is to enlist the help of local organized criminals, known as snakeheads.
Snakehead comes from the idea that the head of the snake leads the way into the West. The Fujianese will need to resort to a local snakehead person to arrange the travel documents he or she would need to pay a sum of money, something between 15,000 to 20,000 pounds to have the journey planned for them.
Having paid a deposit in China, the rest of the debt has to be settled when they get to Britain. To do this, they need to find a job, but because they're here illegally, most are left with little choice than to go to work for the criminal gangs that brought them here. Whatever job they're given, whether it's selling pirate DVDs, cultivating drugs, or even working as a cockle picker, their role is simple: to make money for their employers, whatever the cost.
Identification, documentation.
Even if the 7 Chinese nationals arrested today are all guilty, they're unlikely to be formally charged.
It's not always easy to prove that they've been working on those particular crimes. And in any event, what we're really after is the people who are behind it, the ones who are controlling it, who are organising it, who are taking the money, who make it happen in the first place.
Upstairs, paperwork is found which hints at the sophistication of this operation.
List of, obviously, quite new release films. These serial numbers there, so the H226, correspond to quite an extensive catalogue of DVD cover scans that they've got. There's obviously hundreds, if not thousands.
You'll very often find lists of film titles, sometimes addresses for delivery of the disc to as well.
But the DVDs that have been made here are no longer on the premises. This is typical of this type of setup. The discs are made in one place like this, and then moved to another property to be packaged and passed on to the street sellers for distribution. If the police can find this distribution house and seize the discs before they can be sold, it'll hit the pockets of the criminal bosses hard. Just a few days later, new intelligence comes in about another address in Lewisham that appears to have links to the factory. Could this be where all the discs were sent?
Information's come to light that 2 vehicles have been attending the address and IC5 Chinese males or males of Chinese appearance have been getting out of those vehicles and seen taking heavy packages into this address. It's a terraced property on the Honor Oak Estate, South East 4.
If this is a distribution house, Eddie knows exactly what they'll see when they enter the property.
We'd expect to find racking and thousands of pirate DVDs waiting to be collected.
Yeah, make your way around the back, please.
With no answer at the front door, officers decide to force entry.
Go. Police!
The house is empty, and there's barely even any furniture on the ground floor. But upstairs, the doors to the 3 bedrooms are all locked.
Are you the gate enforcer?
Which one?
All of them.
All of them?
All locked.
That one's in as well. Okay, guys.
It's the discovery police had been hoping for. Tens of thousands of pirate DVDs, ready for sale on the streets of London.
Well, this is clearly a distribution house. You can see the racks of DVDs all ready to be distributed. Looks like quite a sizable one as well. This is going to be a busy house.
The 3 bedrooms have been converted into 3 separate libraries. One for recent releases, one for older film titles, and one for pornography.
They've even classified the porn in different areas as well. So you've got Indian porn here, and then there's got some very nasty bestiality titles down there as well.
Initial estimates suggest there's somewhere in the region of 30,000 counterfeit DVDs in this one house.
30,000 at an average street price of £3, you're looking at potential street value of about 90 to 100,000 pounds just from the product that's here today. If there's others operating in the area, you can multiply that up into the millions. So you can see it's a very, very profitable business.
Policing this type of crime is a frustrating business. Whilst it's good to be able to seize so much counterfeit material before it hits the streets, these empty houses provide a reminder of how elusive the people running these operations are. But the tide is turning. In July last year, the Metropolitan Police claimed their biggest scalps yet. 3 men, Sami and Rafi Asghar Sheikh and their father Khalid were arrested at the premises of their London business.
What we're going to do is we're going to take you, all three of you, to Harlow Police Station, where you'll be given access to legal representation if you want it.
Their company, Samrana Limited, claimed to be importing DVD burners and blank discs and supplying them to legitimate media manufacturers. But in reality, the company was a front for an enormous pirate DVD empire, in which they used their equipment to kit out several huge illegal DVD factories all across London. Although the Asghar Sheikhs are of Pakistani-Iranian origin, they managed to tap into the huge available workforce of illegal Chinese immigrants looking for work in the UK. These workers were forced to live an almost slave-like existence, living and sleeping in squalid conditions inside the factories where they were put to work. This man, Xin Li, was also arrested. An illegal entrant to the UK himself, he acted as a quartermaster, organising the workforce and running a number of the factories. The whole enterprise was worth something in the region of £7 million. After a 3-year investigation by the Metropolitan Police and FACT, the longest of its kind, the men finally had their day in court. Between them, they were sentenced to a total of 18 years in prison.
In this investigation, what we were looking for was the people who are further up the scale of criminality. It's not people selling DVDs on the streets. This is those who are making it happen. This investigation showed that we can go after the people at the top end of organised crime, and we are going after them, and we will do that again in the future. But the sentences handed down will make those people sit up and take notice, and we are coming for the rest of them.
Still to come, we join the British Transport Police as they fight a crime that is sweeping the country: the theft of metal from our churches, roads and railways.
It costs the country an estimated £360 million a year, so it's a massive problem.
But first, policing of a very different kind. The Macclesfield Canal, a popular spot for dog walkers and fishermen. It seems an unlikely place for a police operation. But potentially tragic circumstances have brought the North West's underwater search team to this quiet, picturesque spot.
The job is to look for a missing person, and we've received information today which suggests that the missing from home might in fact be in the water, possibly on one side of the bridge. That's why we're putting 2 divers in, because we're not absolutely sure as to which side has been indicated to us. So we'll see how we go.
The combined underwater search team is made up of police officers from 6 different counties, all of whom are highly skilled in search and recovery, both above and below water. This bridge has been used for suicides in the past, and as the man has now been missing from his nearby home for some days, fears are high that he might have come here to take his own life. Each diver has his own appointed handler, communicating with them from above the surface using both radio links.
Service to diver, how'd you read over?
And rope signals.
It's basically he'll give me a pull on the rope when he's at the end, and then I'll give him some more rope, and then he'll give me 2, obviously to go back the other way.
If it is located, he'll pull on the rope quite quickly, if you like, in successions of 2s. We call them bells. He'll go da-da, da-da, da, if you will, with the rope. And that's, I'll shout 5 bells, and 5 bells means that we've recovered him.
The search has to be regimented and absolutely meticulous, with each diver working their way round in ever-increasing semicircles to ensure that no areas go unchecked.
I'm giving him about 3 foot of line each time, so that we can keep a track on him. Obviously, I'm looking to see where his air bubbles are coming up as well, so that there's less chance of him missing anything as he travels. Because he won't have any visibility at all. So he's got both hands free because the line's attached to his chest, so it's all touchy-feely.
If the body is here, they'll have to find it using only their sense of touch. A 115 miles away in Dorothea Quarry in Carnarvonshire, North Wales, other members of the team are about to begin a search of a very different kind.
Today we're going to have a look for stolen motor vehicles. These steep cliff faces in here is basically ideal for dumping cars in here. Now, so not all of them are stolen, but you don't know till you get down to them, have a look at the registration numbers.
Police have received eyewitness reports of gangs of youths pushing cars off the cliffs and into the deep water below.
I think a lot of people nowadays will just ditch a car rather than take it to the scrapyard. So we'll just wait and see what's in here.
But Chris and his colleagues Phil and Liz won't be diving themselves. The deepest they can go on air is 50 metres, and this quarry is more than twice that depth. Instead, they'll be sending down a remotely operated vehicle, or an ROV. Piloted from above, its underwater camera sends back images to the surface of parts of the quarry the team can't reach themselves.
Right, it's in.
Just bring in a bit of slack, Liz.
As the ROV descends into the depths of the quarry, Chris is on the lookout for evidence of any disturbance that might have been made by a sinking vehicle on its way down.
I think there's some trees and stuff down there. Right, I think I'm on the bottom now anyway, so I'll have a toot around.
But it's quickly apparent that there's nothing to be found on this side of the lake.
I think our informant might be mistaken about the location. Yeah, we'll bring it up and I think we'll change location. Just really looking at the access at the top here, it doesn't seem likely that a vehicle's gone in any time recently. You'd expect to see damage at the top of the cliff. Shrubbery and trees sort of knocked over, normally like bits of glass. There's no evidence of that. We'll go to another point where we know vehicles have been driven off in the past, and we'll have a look there.
Liz pilots the boat to the other side of the quarry. Once they've moored under another possible dumping point, they relaunch the ROV.
You just drop it in, Phil.
Their decision to move quickly pays off.
I'm on a big stack of vehicles.
There we are. Oh, you can see them.
Oh, it's got a fridge in the back door, this one.
Nice one.
Look at this. There's a vehicle.
Yeah. There's a fridge.
There's a fridge landed on top of it.
That is a shock, that, isn't it?
And then there's a bike there, look.
Yeah.
If we go down now, it's on top of another one, which is on top of another one. The one at the bottom is probably stuck on a ledge, and then they're kind of just stacked one above the other. Obviously, as they come off the top of the cliff, they slide down the cliff till they hit the next vehicle in the queue, so to speak.
Their aim is now to work out how these vehicles got there and whether any of them are stolen. The number plates should provide the answers.
Can you get that? Echo Alpha Mike.
Lima, that Echo Alpha.
Some of these cars have been in here for so long that it's impossible to make out the plates. They've simply eroded. But the fact that they can even get this close to the vehicles is an achievement in itself. Without the ROV, it'd be impossible.
With there being so many cars in this sort of precarious position that they are, realistically, it would be far too dangerous to put a diver in here in case one of them shifted position and became trapped. Now we're just getting another vehicle now. What's that? Alpha Echo
03.
03.
Zulu. Victor X-ray. Looks like a blue Volkswagen.
There are at least 5 cars in this pile. This blue Volkswagen looks much newer than the others. But has it been stolen? The number plate is cross-referenced with the police national computer back at HQ. And there's a match.
That was just confirming that the vehicle is outstanding stolen from Betheli.
Stolen 2 years ago, neither the car nor the culprit had ever been found. The long-dormant case has just had a major breakthrough.
It may have been involved in crime, and it could be that we come back at a later date and put a diver in to recover the vehicle for forensics.
Without their specialist expertise, it's unlikely this vehicle would ever have been found. In Macclesfield, their colleagues are still searching for the missing person in the canal. Operations like these are an everyday part of the job, but successes, like the one in the quarry, aren't guaranteed. Very often they'll find nothing, but they have to search all the same. At the very least, it helps to narrow down the number of places that a person could be, and that's the way this search seems to be going.
Si, I'll just lead you across here, that'll do.
The decision's made to stop the dive. The search for the missing person will have to continue elsewhere.
Is it disappointing when you don't find, obviously?
Yeah, it is a bit, yeah. I mean, particularly with the information we had for this job, you know, we kind of expected him to, more or less to be here, you know, either on this side or that side, but it proves not to be the case on this occasion.
The combined underwater search team is called to all types of different jobs, all over the 6 counties they cover. National security is a big part of their remit. They're often called on to inspect suspect packages and objects found under the water. In Liverpool, they were sent to examine what looked like some kind of unexploded rocket resting on the riverbed. Even the Mersey's crabs seemed drawn to it. But when the diver got close enough to take a good look, it became clear that it was just a harmless toy. But for every false alarm, there's a genuine discovery. Here in Holyhead, witnesses had spotted an unusual box that appeared to be attached to the hull of a ship recently arrived from Jamaica. 2 divers were sent to detach the 3-foot-long object and return it to the surface. When opened, it contained £60,000 worth of marijuana, smuggled in without the knowledge of anybody on board. But their expertise isn't only required below the waterline. The team have been called to a recently closed hotel in Cheshire. Unusually, the premises sit on top of a jetty, rising and falling with the tides from the nearby river. Since its closure, the hotel has fallen into disrepair, and intelligence suggests it's now being used by local drug addicts. The building has been condemned and the council want to shut it down, but before they can do that, it must be thoroughly searched, and that's where the underwater search team come in.
The site has been subject to damage, there's been wire stripped out of it, some of the floors given away, and part of the building has sunk. And it's been decided that the venue itself is going to be a confined space search.
A confined space is classified as virtually any area that's potentially dangerous to a person's health. This can include sewers, ships, storage tanks, and in this case, disused buildings. Because of their expertise with all different kinds of breathing equipment, the underwater search team is considered the only police unit qualified to enter such spaces.
This is the map we've got. Yeah. Well, 2 of these.
2 of you.
Yeah. But it would appear this one's the first floor.
This is the upper floor.
Right. The best thing to do was split it into 2. What do you think? You 2 do the upper floor,
upstairs and downstairs.
And Colin and I will do downstairs.
Not anything else going on this morning, have it?
Yeah, Roger, understood. Information, underwater search is going to be going in and searching this venue.
All power has been switched off, so there's no way of knowing what visibility will be like once they get deep inside the building. But every single room needs to be searched. They can't run the risk that someone might end up trapped inside.
Taters are going to taters. No trash. This is the executive wing, I think. Just disgusting.
Oh, yeah.
Copper stripping's been going on in here.
The underwater search unit have gone in wearing lightweight breathing apparatus, carrying a gas detector As we're treating this as a confined space, should there be any flammable or poisonous atmospheres in there, the gas detector will alarm. They then put on the breathing apparatus.
As they reach the bowels of the hotel, visibility becomes so poor they need to switch their cameras to night vision.
Slight reception.
Is the quick way? It is, yeah. This should be room 201 and 202.
Man, that is disgusting.
On the ground floor, they find a door which is suspiciously locked from the inside.
Cupboard, the door locked. Just in here if you want to have a Jamie open and show you.
I'll go and get the others if you want, yeah.
They call on local officers waiting outside for assistance.
Clear? Told you it was good. Clear.
Whoever was in this room is now long gone, but they've left clear evidence of what they were up to.
The drug stuff there. Yeah.
There are used drug needles lying all over the room.
There's not a single mirror that isn't smashed in the whole place.
But they've been after the piping, you know, copper piping, copper wire. Just stripped it all.
Finished the job at Northbridge.
The only real room where there was proper drug paraphernalia was 219.
Right.
In there, there's evidence of sort of like, you know, like dress jewellery. Whether it's from a burglar, I don't know. There's also an old video in there as well. So
Right, okay.
I've left that as it is and just
Go and have a look.
Yeah, but there's loads of syringes on the floor and that in 219. So.
Okay. Yes, it's clearly been used for people sleeping overnight, taking drugs and drink. All the rooms and everything has just been wrecked, trashed.
Well, the main concern now is the site's been swept, there's no persons here, it's keeping it secure. Now it's going to be the council's responsibility, so I'm going to liaise with them. They're going to do a sweep of any needles that are on the site, get them disposed of appropriately. It may take a couple of days, so we're looking at providing some security overnight.
The team is at Liverpool's Albert Docks. It's summer, and their task for the day is a routine scan of the bottom of the Mersey. They're using sonar equipment to search for suspicious objects. With so many areas of specialism and such a wide area of the country to cover, the team never have any idea when or where their next job is going to come from. But with the operation barely an hour old, the day takes a sudden turn.
I've just recently had a phone call from the sergeant, Ryan. He's been deployed to a job in one of the lakes or ponds. A swimmer has gone missing.
Call-outs like this are common in the summer months.
There's been a few recently, and they think because it's a nice sunny day they can go swimming. The problem is the water never really warms up that much, and they often get into trouble.
As the swimmer hasn't been seen for over 40 minutes, it's clear to the team that, unfortunately, there's little likelihood he'll be found alive.
The only thing I know at the moment is that a swimmer's gone out, and that when they've lost sight of him.
The man was first spotted by a passer-by who raised the alarm at a local pub. Whilst the emergency services were called, some members of the public bravely attempted to reach him.
As we came round the corner, we could see him. So we swam out to see if we could get him. We couldn't see a thing.
PC Colin Samuel is the officer who'll dive to carry out the search. He'll use a systematic pattern, moving his way methodically out in arcs from the place where the swimmer disappeared under the water. The fire brigade were the first to arrive on the scene, and conducted initial searches of the area.
That corner there, how far did you get near the water reserve?
Well, literally all you had to do was just dig through.
But since then, there's been no sign of the missing man.
We've had search teams around the edge of the bank to see whether or not this chap has made it to the bank and got out under his own steam. That doesn't look to be the case at the moment, and it is being treated quite sadly as a body recovery at the moment.
Visibility is extremely poor, so Colin will need to rely on all of his other senses if he's going to find the body. Dives like these are physically grueling, so one diver can only stay in the water for a limited amount of time. As the search approaches the hour mark, preparations to swap divers begin. But then, there's a sudden flurry of activity out on the lake.
It appears that they've recovered the male. He's been brought to the surface by the diver and will be either in or next to the fire brigade boat at the moment.
And it was completely dark down there, absolutely pitch black. From the moment I got in to the moment I came out, well, within about a foot of the surface, it was pitch black. I honestly expected to find him, you know, by a sort of triangulation method that we'd been given, but we would find him quite quickly, because you always start at the most sort of likely point and then work out. But at that point, I think Ryan said I'd been in for about an hour when I came across him. I didn't expect to find him that far out.
As the man's body is handed over to paramedics, the local police begin the process of identifying him. It'll be their task to inform his next of kin. Without the expertise and persistence of Colin and his colleagues, there's no way of knowing when he would have been found.
The underwater search team have attended and located the body in literally 1 hour, which is it's a great help for us and will be for the family of the male. Without them, it could have been hours and hours, possibly even days, to locate the male in a situation like this.
As sad as this type of situation is, it's all part of the job.
It's obviously good for the family that we found the body so soon, as it were. Just be as gentle as you can about the whole thing, as it was. But that's it. That's our kind of bread and butter work. That's what we do, you know.
Now we're heading south to join the British Transport Police's metal theft unit. It's March 2009, and officers have gathered at Sheffield Arena to be briefed before searching a local scrap metal yard. Detective Inspector Stuart Mellish is leading the operation.
They are a legitimate business and they are dealing with nominals that we've got interest in, so they are unwittingly receiving stolen metal. So one of the important issues for the PSU from London today is a thorough search of that particular dealer. Once we arrive at the dealers, we'll have a scrum down outside for a couple of minutes. We'll speak to the manager of the company and let them know what we're doing and what we're about, and we'll take it from there.
If the officers can locate the stolen material and work out how it got there, the trail of evidence should lead them directly to the thieves themselves. But this site contains hundreds of thousands of tons of scrap metal, so it'll be like searching for a needle in a haystack.
Hi mate, D.I. Stuart Mellish, how are you doing? All right. What it is, first and foremost, what we're doing, we're just going to check your books, have a quick look around the yard, just make sure everything's running over, ticket to boot. There's a lot of police here, simple reason, you've got a big yard and we just want to search, have a quick look around, is that all right?
There will be two teams, one will go clockwise, one will go... If we could have a mix of skills in both teams, that would be good.
Metal theft has become big business for criminals. Despite the recession, prices have remained high, so thieves are stealing metal whenever and wherever they can find it. They'll target anything, from lead on church roofs to catalytic converters on cars, manhole covers in the road, and steel from the railways. They then take it to metal dealers and sell it on for scrap.
It affects the railway industry, the travelling industry, the telecommunications industry, gas, water and electricity boards have all been affected by this, and it costs the country an estimated £360 million a year, so it's a massive problem.
It's such a lucrative industry for criminals that the British Transport Police have set up dedicated teams to confront the problem head-on.
We've seen transactions between £30,000 and £50,000 over 3 or 4 transactions, so it's a vast amount of money to be made.
The 10 o'clock Liverpool Lime Street service due to its late running has now been cancelled.
The biggest disruption to the rail network comes when criminals target the copper cabling that's used to power the signals and carry vital telecommunications up and down the lines. PC Chris Walker took us trackside to show us what typically happens.
All they simply do is the troughing lid is removed, quite clearly exposes all of the cable. They select which one they want, cut through the cable. Further down the track they do the same. The troughing lids are left like that once they're finished, and away they go.
As soon as one cable gets cut, all power and communications to the signals die, and the entire network for miles around grinds to a halt. And it isn't just railway cabling that gets targeted. Thieves have even been known to cut through power cables, shutting down entire areas of the national grid and forcing thousands of homes and businesses into darkness.
The people that we are dealing with that are taking cable are not the cleverest individuals in the world. They're far from well off. They're doing it because they literally need money, either to feed a drug habit or literally just to live. And they will go to whatever lengths they need to. If it means electrocuting themselves, they will do it. It has been known to happen.
The copper from these cables can fetch up to £3,000 to £4,000 a tonne. So whilst some thieves are content to steal in relatively small amounts, others try to steal in bulk, with some criminals willing to go to extreme lengths in their pursuit of it. There were almost 2,500 reported incidents of cable theft last year, but the British Transport Police are fighting back. Back in Sheffield, the search of the yard is well underway. Some elements of the scrap metal industry work on a cash-in-hand basis, often with no questions asked about where each load actually comes from. And that's a mentality the unit are working hard to change.
Because what we want is we want to identify materials in the yard, and we need a paper trail. So we can go point to some piece of metal, where's it come from, how much you paid for it, so we know exactly where everything's going to and coming from.
Whenever a load of scrap metal is brought in, precise records are supposed to be kept of who came in with what. But a quick look at the books here shows that this doesn't always happen.
Example here going back to beginning of February, where it just says AM, should have the proper time registered there. The address of the person given has just put Costa Lot Bungalow in Doncaster.
You know, the idea of the records is that we can trace the people who are weighing the materials in the first place. You know, if it's hard for us to trace them from that, then they're not a deal of use to us.
As the search enters its second hour, there's no sign of any stolen metal. Then, as D.I. Mellish ponders what to do next, a breakthrough.
Have you found some? Right. All right, then I'll pass it down and record something down the back of the buildings. Where is he now? He says he's in the middle of the yards and we're near the building.
Officers have found a load of copper cabling in the middle of the site, and it's clearly been stolen from the railway network.
That just gives you an idea how we identify the cables quite easily. Bottom line is this type of stuff shouldn't be in the scrap metal dealers. It's arrived here as a result of some form of criminality. We're going to get the crane here to remove all the pile of cable here. We're going to go through this and see if we can identify someone. Someone's just going to walk in here with just that small amount of cable and waiting. My guess is going to be something quite more hidden underneath that.
His suspicions are correct. The deeper the crane digs, the more stolen cable it uncovers, taken from both the railway and British Telecom networks. As the officers work through the hoard of stolen cable, the owner of the yard looks on. He had no idea it was on his site. It was brought in, hidden underneath another load, but Stuart has little sympathy.
know, we are getting the message across to scrap metal dealers. The National Metal Theft Unit, we are going to come knocking on your door, we are come looking for stuff. And anything that shouldn't be here, we're going to take it and we'll confiscate it.
And that will hit the scrap metal dealers' profits hard. The boss of this site has stern words for his workers.
If you see open like that, anything like that, anything in any of loads, merely telephone cable or anything, anything, any customer, straight away, bar them, get them, ring me up, let me get them out yard, gone. I'll take the number down, bollocks to them, they can get done for it. I'm not standing this, it's not worth it, is it?
But criminals don't stop at copper cabling. Sometimes metal thieves set their sights far higher, as PC Chris Walker explains.
We received a report that 42 tonne of steel was stolen from a railway yard at Kingmore in Carlisle.
Kingmore Yard is used by Network Rail to store track and sleepers. On the morning of Monday, the 9th of May 2008, staff discovered that 42 tonnes of steel rail had disappeared over the weekend. They also noticed that the site forklifts had been moved. That same day, over 100 miles away, CCTV picked up 2 freight lorries delivering the same missing 42 tonnes of rail to a metal recycling plant in Salford. The man who'd brought the stolen rail in was caught on CCTV.
He supervises the unloading of the 42 tonne of steel at the recycling centre in Salford, and he clearly shows him going into the cash office and receiving just short of £7,000 in cash.
But who was this man? And how had he got hold of the metal? Kingmore Yard hadn't been broken into, so someone with access to the site had to have been involved. Finding out who wasn't particularly difficult.
We visited sites and we quite early on realised that Terry Holland, an employee on site at Kingmore, had an involvement. Hello. Hi, Terry. I do.
Not only was Terry Holland the only man who had access to the site keys that day, he was also the only employee qualified to drive the forklifts that had been used to move the steel.
He was interviewed at the custody suite, where for probably about just over an hour he denied any involvement in the incident, but eventually admitted he drove the forklift truck and he assisted with the theft of the 42 tonne of steel.
But Terry Holland was adamant he only took part in exchange for a small backhander, and he never had any contact with the man caught on camera accepting the cash. Police had no idea who this man was. They turned to the haulage company, who unwittingly had been hired to transport the stolen steel to Salford. They confirmed that the man caught on camera here was the same man that had hired the lorries, personally making all the collection and delivery arrangements. Not only that, they had a name for him: Jeremy Patterson, a scrap metal dealer from Cumbria. Police now had their prime suspect. It's early July, and the metal theft team, joined by the head of the unit, D.I. Stuart Mellish, gather at the police station near Patterson's home in Carlisle to plan his arrest.
There's been no movement of sight of him this morning. The yard opened up at 8 o'clock this morning as normal. 2 members of staff opened up. Basically, the objective today is just get in there very quickly, nice and low-key, identify Patterson. Chris, you make the arrest. There's some old intel from many years ago. Apparently, it used to be a bare-knuckle fighter. I don't know how true that is, but I'm sure the few of us here can deal with that. And I certainly believe Patterson's the main player in this crime. He's certainly shown a degree of organisation and facilitation. So, any questions? Yep, let's go and get him then. Go on.
But as they arrive at Patterson's scrapyard, there's no sign of him, and it doesn't look like he's only just popped out.
Who's Jeremy on?
Benidorm, must be.
When's he back?
I'm not sure where it's tonight or tomorrow morning. It doesn't tell you very much.
All right.
Unfortunately, a short notice stag weekend has called him away to
the sunny shores of Benidorm, so unless the DI is going to authorise me to pop out there and go and speak with him, I think we'll have to wait until tomorrow morning, which is when he's back.
Having lost the element of surprise, Stuart and Chris regroup to discuss what to do next.
Is that Mr. Patterson? Yeah. Hello, Jeremy. My name's PC Walker. I'm from the National Metal Theft Crime Unit based in Sheffield. I'm at your yard at the moment at Brampton. Whereabouts are you at the moment, please? Yeah, I thought you were, yeah. Stag weekend, is it? Yeah. Are you in work tomorrow?
It would appear Mr. Patterson has been drinking.
Well, I'm sure you'll be sober in the morning. OK, well, if I pop and see you sort of at mid-morning to dinner time tomorrow, cheers now, enjoy your evening, bye-bye. Sounds like he started early this morning.
I'd have started on Friday.
Tomorrow morning, go.
Tomorrow morning. Started on Friday.
What time do you want to get back? Here tomorrow morning or?
Yeah, he said can you make it mid-morning, because he's absolutely wasted.
It will be tomorrow morning.
Wasted.
All right, we'll just regroup. Yeah, obviously a little bit disappointed. Evidentially-wise, we've not lost anything today. Like I say, we wanted an element of surprise. Obviously, that's gone now, but nevertheless, we'll live to fight another day and we'll speak to him tomorrow.
When the next morning comes, the team set out again for Patterson's scrapyard, hopeful he's returned home overnight as promised.
So all being well, we can get Patterson and cuff him, start the search and get him on the way to custody using Paul if he's happy with that.
But Chris is apprehensive.
He's obviously forewarned now that we're going to be coming speaking with him. It always gives him the opportunity to get rid of evidence and prepare his case, I suppose. I'm just hoping that he's not aware exactly what we want to speak to him about. See if his gates are open, we'll go into his house. No, they're not. Dog's out. There's pupil carriers there. Pull in. There he is. That's the guy with the red T-shirt on there.
Patterson is instantly recognisable as the man caught red-handed in the CCTV.
Before I go any further this morning, I need you to listen to what I'm going to say to you, Jeremy, OK? I'm arresting you for the theft, or on suspicion of the theft of 42 tonne of steel from Kingmore Yard, Carlisle, on the 9th of May 2009.
Yep.
You don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you don't mention one question, something which you later learn in court. Anything that you do say may be given evidence. You understand that?
Yep.
OK, what I intend to do now is have a search of your yard, your house, because you've been arrested here at your place of residence. Have the power under the Police and Criminal Evidence Act to search your premises. We need to search the address.
Patterson is allowed inside to collect his belongings before being taken off to custody.
You remember speaking to me yesterday?
I
knew.
Blotto, man. Absolutely.
I knew when I got off the phone, and I could see you find it quite funny. I thought, I don't think he realises who's phoned him or...
I didn't know where I was, to be honest with you. I was lucky to get on the airplane, actually. I nearly didn't let us on.
What time did you fly back?
What time did you ring? It was dinner time.
Yeah.
12-ish.
Yeah.
About half an hour after you rang us.
Was it really?
Aye,
oh yeah, you were loaded when I spoke to you.
Loaded right up. I've been on it all weekend.
Okay, mate, you get fella.
As Patterson is driven away to the station, the team begin the search. They're looking for absolutely anything to connect him to the incident, whether it be invoices, bank statements, cash, or phone numbers.
He runs a fair-sized business, so they usually have the paperwork in one place, so we asked him to point us to that and then we can make a start. It saves time for them and for us.
Wait by the door there.
Finding that a lot of the drawers are empty. What does that make you think? Stuff used to be there, but obviously it's not now. So we got a bit clear out last night.
Patterson's house is right next door to his scrapyard. So there are an awful lot of places to search.
Hello, Sarge. There's a house search and a premises of his scrapyard being carried out at the moment.
Back inside the house, amongst a pile of paperwork, the team finally strike gold. They've found an invoice addressed to Patterson from the haulage company, hired to transport the stolen 42 tonnes from Carlisle to Salford.
This is obviously from the transport company that transported it on his behalf, and it actually indicates 2 centimetres. Yeah, and that was the actual date of the theft. Is
that pretty conclusive, eh?
Pretty much, yeah. It's invoice from the transport company that delivered it to the yard to Mr. Patterson here. So he's at best arranged the delivery of it.
As the officers remove all the bagged evidence from the house, Chris arrives back on site from the station.
I'll put this in our car.
And is absolutely delighted at the discovery of the invoice.
Well, good stuff. So it looks like it's been invoiced properly. Just nice to tie all the documentation from the house here to all the information we've got. It's great. So we'll go and have a chat with him and see what he's got to say about that.
Jeremy Patterson was found guilty of conspiracy to commit theft and was sentenced to 6 months imprisonment, suspended for 2 years. He was also ordered to complete 200 hours unpaid work and pay compensation and costs. The forklift truck driver, Terry Holland, cooperated with the police and all charges were dropped. Last year, the British Transport Police made over 900 arrests relating to cable and metal theft and criminal damage to live cables.